Linux is not hard to use in 2026. The most common thing people say when I mention Linux is that it's too technical and that they can't use it, that it is for hackers and professionals who are professional software developers or programmers. But here's the thing, that was true in 2005 maybe. But now in 2026, that is not true at all. Saying Linux is hard is a myth that is same as saying Earth is flat. We know it's not true, but it still persists. So in this video, I'm going to talk about how Linux is very easy to use in 2026 and how you can get started using Linux very quickly. So where did the myth come from? In the early 2000s and the 90s, it was common that Linux was very hard because it was mainly terminal only, it was manual configuration and drivers were a nightmare to use. But that era is over. The people who have used that Linux, the old one, have not touched it since then and they still think that it is the same and it's still technical and hard to use. But their opinion is frozen in time and it's not true. And this impression that Linux is hard has stuck around for a very long time, even with new generation of people from my age and even younger people, because they have never tried using Linux because of all the things they have heard before. So for a simple analogy, it's like saying all phones have keypads, which was true in 2004 when Nokia had keypads. So what Linux looks like today? For starters, we have a familiar looking desktop where we have taskbars, menus, file managers, all the usual stuff that you see on Windows and Mac OS. Also things like browsers work normally, even if it's Chrome, Brave, Firefox, YouTube, Gmail, you get an identical experience. You can also use LibreWolf, which is a way better option compared to Microsoft Office, which charges you a subscription and is a privacy nightmare, which is not true with LibreOffice, which is free and open source. And some of the countries in Europe are moving towards it instead of using Microsoft products. The app centers also work the same way. It's very easy and intuitive. You can just search for a software that you want to download, click install, and it's done. So if you can use Windows and Mac OS, you can use this. The skill transfer is 1:1. You don't have to change much of anything. It's just that some things look slightly different compared to Windows and Mac OS. So nowadays, you don't need to exactly use a terminal like you used to in the past, especially with the distros like Mint, which are very easy to use. You don't really need to open the terminal almost never unless you are trying to do something really different. And even if you have to use it, you usually have to just copy and paste a simple command from a website or documents that you can just copy and paste and just make it work in the terminal. The really good thing that I like about Linux is that they don't force you to restart your PC when you make any kind of updates. You can choose when you want to restart it. So it gives you the freedom to do the things the way you want to do them and not force you to do them. And I think most of the Indians who have used computer have only used Windows and they have no other experience of even Mac OS or Linux. So they are used to seeing a lot of bloatware because Microsoft is really bad with bloatware. So in Linux, you don't get Candy Crush ads in your startup menu. Actually, you don't get ads at all. There are no recommended apps for you to download. There is nothing like that. It's very clean and very light to use. So when it comes to drivers, it's very easy. Most of the time, it just works out of the box like Wi-Fi, sound, display. They are all automatic. And maybe if you have an NVIDIA GPU, you may struggle a bit, but it's still very easy to solve, usually. So usually I see that people have a fear of unknown and this is why they don't install Linux, because they think, what if I break something and what if I can't understand what to do in Linux and I'm so used to using Windows. This is something that I've used all my life. I don't know how to use anything else. I have not even used Mac OS, which is true for most of the people in India. They have never tried Mac OS. So they just, when it comes to operating system, all they know is Microsoft. and they fear that if they change their operating system, they won't be able to make it work, or the learning curve would be so steep that they would struggle a lot. But let me tell you, it's not that hard. You won't break anything. The worst case will be that you may need to reinstall your Linux distro again, and that would be it. But the same goes for Windows too. If you mess something up, you may need to reinstall Windows as well. But how many times does that happen? There is also sunk cost fallacy, which goes like this, that I have already spent so many years learning Windows. Why should I restart and learn Linux from zero? But you're not starting from zero. You already know how to use Windows, which is easily transferable skill for Linux as well. I see that people have this sunk cost fallacy and they get stuck thinking about it, but it's not true, guys. You can easily transfer the same things to Linux. There is also this notion that I am not a tech person and I have to be a tech person in order to use Linux because it's so technical and demanding, but that is not the case. You can try Linux Mint and it's very easy. You will maybe notice that it looks slightly different compared to Windows, but it's very similar and it's very easy to use as well. So the truth is, the hardest part is not about learning Linux, it's about deciding when to try Linux. And most people get stuck there. And I really want people to use Linux and open source softwares, because Microsoft is getting worse and it's trying to take a lot of your data. They make billions and billions of dollars based on your data. The same is something that Google is doing, and they're trying to lock down Android as much as possible, which is an open source software. And I want people to become aware of what they are losing, because it's a slippery slope and it can be very bad for everyone when softwares start to close down and open source softwares are not given any kind of traction, because we are losing a lot of privacy and it's getting easier and easier for companies and corporations and even countries to manipulate us, and we don't even realize what is going on. At least most of us do not. And it's because we are giving so much of our data away and we don't value our own data, which is something I want people to do, especially in India. So I want people to use Linux. This is the reason. If you have been keeping up with news, you would realize some of the countries in Europe are moving towards Linux because they do not trust Microsoft because of what's going on in the world today with wars and everything, and because corporations like Meta and Microsoft, how they are dealing and manipulating people, and it becomes a very bad thing when corporations get so much power. Google is also one of them. So I want people to realize this and make small changes to their lives to make their own lives better. So the wrap is, in 2026, Linux is not for hackers, it's for everyone. Anyone can use it. Anyone who has a computer that just wants the computers to work without ads, without tracking, and that doesn't force any kind of weird updates on your machine. If you want to update it, you can update it. It doesn't install weird update softwares or weird programs through updates on your machine. Okay, and Linux is open source. You can see all the code, which makes it very trustable because you know what is going on inside your own machine, and you don't need to be a programmer for this. And the next point, the only thing hard about Linux is making the decision to try it. So I hope after watching this video, I have eased some of that resistance out of you and you do give it a try. And if there is anything that is keeping you from trying Linux, you can drop it in the comments and I'll try to answer every one of your queries and questions. So thank you for watching. Bye bye.